My name is Lauren Herman, and I'm excited to talk to you about making a career change. So to jump in here, this topic is part of our monthly series with Eden's Counseling Group as part of a focus on wellness. So every month we have a really great topic related to wellness, and I'm really excited to talk to you about a topic that's really important to me and passionate, that I am passionate about, and that's career counseling and making a career change. So really when it comes to, when it comes to our overall well-being, the work we do plays such a big role in how we show up in the rest of our lives and vice versa, right? Our day-to-day life really impacts how we show up at work and how we feel about work. So our career has a big impact on our wellness. And so I'm excited to really focus in on this topic today with you all. So a little bit about me. My name's Lauren Herman. I work at Eden's Counseling Group, providing both individual and career counseling. And I have a history of over 7 years, specifically working within career counseling. I worked in settings of higher education, so at universities. I've also worked for outplacement agency, providing services for folks who've been laid off and helping them with finding their next move. So I have a lot of experience working with adults who are going through transitions. I've been with Eden's Counseling Group just over 6 months at our Sugar Land location, just outside of Houston, Texas. And some of you may be joining us from outside of Texas, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And for those that are local too, thanks for joining us. But I've been with Eden's Counseling Group for a little while now, also providing individual mental health support too, in addition to providing support for folks just with career concerns. And as you can imagine, when it comes to career concerns and career changes, they can impact us in a lot of ways. And so a lot of these transitions also include processing our feelings about the transition, right? And that can include grief, loss, anxiety about the future, kind of concerns about who am I and what does the world of work mean to me and how do I want to show up at work and at home. It can also lead to some depression, and I really like to focus on compassion to combat some of those things. And kind of one of my ultimate takeaways that I hope you have here today is that we just can't separate our career lives from the rest of us. So again, a lot of us may think, I can just go to work, I can do a job I don't like, and I'll just get through it and it'll be fine and the rest of my life will be fine. Well, we just can't compartmentalize in that way. It's just, we physically can't do it. We're just one whole person. And so again, it's important that our work aligns with what's important to us. And I'll talk more about how to kind of find that alignment. And if you're feeling a little stuck, we can talk about how to kind of get moving in the right direction so that you feel well overall and feel like things are aligning for you in your life. So it's a little bit about me. So I want to start with just asking some questions. And if you would, please answer these in the chat. Since we are recording, I want to kind of protect your voice and names as much as possible. So if you'd add it to the chat, I'd love to kind of just get a sense of if you've ever made a career change before, what was hard about it? Or if you're going through one now or thinking about going through one now, what about it feels hard or feels challenging? And again, you can just add it to the chat box if you're comfortable. Someone said the unknown is hard to face. Absolutely. Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing. So someone said the unknown is hard to face. Absolutely, can feel really scary and uncertain. Someone said they've gone through it before and it was the best decision they've ever made. I have some great follow-up questions for you. That's awesome. Someone shared there's a pressure to find your purpose. Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of times I hear I just have to, I need to find my passion and just do this thing I'm passionate about or find my purpose. And a lot of that is like trial and error. And a lot of times our passion or purpose changes over life. But yeah, that can definitely feel like a lot of pressure. Someone said, I'm afraid to fail. Thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely. Trying something new. It's like, what if I haven't done it before? And what does that mean about me if I'm not good at it? And I would also even think about like, what does failure mean to you? What is that? What does failure look like for you? Someone shared that they're a lot older now, and so maybe things feel different. I wonder for you now that you're older, or maybe a change feels harder as we get older. Someone says they feel stuck in their career that they're not as excited about. I totally understand that. And you might have been excited about it one time and things have changed for you and maybe it's not so exciting anymore. Someone said motivation begets motivation. Yep. So finding what motivates you is important. Someone said they're excited about changes. Awesome. Yeah. Finding fulfillment and values that align. Finding someone that will take a chance when you haven't worked in a particular field. Oh, I'm so glad you shared that. Yeah, that can be hard is getting someone who's going to take a chance on you. And we'll talk a little bit about some ideas for that. But yeah, that can be hard because it does take a little bit of a risk for you and the employer. Someone shared that they transitioned from creative environment to corporate because it seemed right. And now kind of figuring out what the struggle is for the next step. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's especially when we start looking to like societal pressures or norms from other people about what is right, it can really, sometimes it doesn't always align with what we need or what we feel is best for us. And that can be really challenging. Sometimes it's hard to find a job that aligns with a very specific career focus I've developed. Yeah, so depending on how niche you are in your career, it can be hard. And I'm, we don't have time to discuss it, but I'd be curious for you to think about, if you're open to making a change or if you want to stay in that field, what that change might look like. Okay. You got some agreement here. Someone said they made a career change and it was a disaster and reluctant to make another career change. I totally get that. Yeah. So this past experience of, oh my God, what if I have this experience again? That can be a really, really scary feeling. Yeah. There's a lot of agreement here. Thank you all so much for one, sharing and being vulnerable, and two, supporting each other. Someone just shared perfect timing, finding and surrounding yourself with supportive folks. Yeah, well, it sounds like you've got a great space for that here. Let's see, so make sure there's a lot of mess. Y'all are very active in the chat. I'm so glad that you're participating. Someone shared income versus passion. Feels like they're mutually exclusive. Oh, I hope not. Depending on your industry, sometimes it can feel that way, but I get that can be challenging, right? Like a lot of times there's this stigma that like creative fields don't make as much money, and that can be a tension for sure. A lot of people your age may be retiring, but wanting to make a career change. Yeah, that can be hard. We know age discrimination is real too. There's a lot of challenges there. Can be a lot of challenges, unfortunately. I love all these likes and agreements with one another. Okay, so a lot of you have, thank you so much for sharing. So a lot of you have shared some challenges. And so, some of you alluded to things that maybe made it a challenge, but I am curious for you if there's strategies. I'm actually going to jump down to the third question here. What are things that have worked for you before? So if you've made a career change or thinking about one, let's share some kind of like positive advice with one another. What are things that have worked for you before? Someone shared not being afraid to rethink my whole career path. Oh, that takes a lot of courage. Research. Yeah. Doing a lot of research. Hearing from people who made similar changes. That's great. That can be really helpful. Yeah, so learning about other people's experiences, right? So like, how did you make this change? How are you able to get your foot in the door? Developing a strong resume. Yep, strong resume, interviewing skills definitely make a difference. Focusing on passion, let's see. Passion, not just a paycheck. It's great when those things align. keeping an open mind to the experience and the people can sometimes be easier said than done. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. So yeah, so the research, having some strategic documents can be really helpful. Being open, I think that's, yeah, like I said, so much easier said than done. It does take a lot of courage to be kind of open to a new experience. I also just like to add the caveat that making sure it's things feel stable in other areas of your life, so that way you are okay with, I shouldn't say okay, that you might have more of the capacity to lean into getting a little uncomfortable with a career change. So I found that that's really helpful for people too, that when there's, if lots of areas of their lives are feeling a little unstable, that may not be the best time for a career change. But yeah, being able to be in a place where you feel like you can be open, that's huge, very huge. Jump in, stop avoiding and putting off applying, and making time to work on resume and research. Yeah. Also, sometimes easier said than done too, but definitely can feel so good to like once you get a little bit of momentum, it can feel so empowering and encouraging to keep going, for sure. Awesome. These are all great tips and like things that even just like ways to approach this process, right? Because it is hard. And everybody's situation is different. And so I just like to acknowledge, like I said, that sometimes we've got a lot of things in our lives that might feel a little uneasy or unsteady. And so I do find that people feel a little bit more comfortable and feel like they are able to kind of jump in or have an open mind or things like that when other pieces of their life are feeling like they're more settled too. But again, we can't separate, who we are from what we do at work. And so I definitely know that, again, personal life and work life can interact with one another. But I also just like to acknowledge that making a career change can be an uncomfortable thing, right? It requires leaning into something new. There's the uncertainty that you all mentioned. And so we'll talk about, again, some ways to kind of cope with that. But I also just like for people to have some like grace with themselves too, like this can be a hard thing. And anyway, I'm glad you're all here and like, it sounds like already thinking about how to lean in and do this hard thing. So just hope you acknowledge that for yourself too. All right, so kind of moving on. I like to share this kind of approach to a career change, really any kind of transition, but I love this, especially when thinking about a change. So a lot of you talked about, things that can feel kind of scary, especially with the unknown, and especially not knowing what's out there, knowing if I'll fail. And William Bridges has a book called Transitions that has, I think, a really nice approach to thinking about any kind of life transition, but especially to a career change. A lot of times when we think of new phases of our life, we might think of like a chapter book where, okay, one chapter ends and then we turn the page and the next chapter begins. And what William Bridges kind of argues is that we forget about this in-between period that is actually the most important part of any transition. So a lot of times you want to get from, the end of point A to point B, but there's this kind of murky in-between part. So according to William Bridges, there's these 3 stages. So one is the end, right? So there are things that let us know that we're at the end of a chapter, the end of a phase of our lives. And it could be that, people around us are retiring, or I'm feeling stuck in a job and I'm losing motivation. It could be, that the money isn't meeting, the salary isn't meeting the needs of your lifestyle, or your family needs have changed, or whatever it might be. But there's things in our lives that tell us it's time for a change. And with that, there's some sense of loss, right? So anytime a phase of our life ends, there's, for some people, is some grief associated there, and that, this life that we thought we were going to have, the future we thought we were going to have in this direction, is coming to an end, or the way things were going, whether good or bad, or any experience in the middle, is coming to an end. And sometimes we can have some really strong feelings about that, and it's important to process those. And the book has some really great reflection questions to kind of think about what's leading you to your end, and how do you want to make meaning and find kind of some comfort and like resolution in your ending. Okay. And then when we think about the middle, I like to think of it, I have this picture of like the Wizard of Oz when she's dreaming and there's a tornado kind of swirling around and things just feel really uncertain and unsettled. And a lot of you may know that feeling. I like to call it the swirlies also. But it's this in-between feeling that's actually the most important part of any transition. And that's actually where the most growth happens, because it gives us the time to kind of pause and have this open space of seeing what are the pieces we want to collect and hold on to and take with us as the dust is starting to settle and before we move into our new beginning. And there's again, questions in the book too, to kind of think about how do you want to start your beginning and how do you want to move forward. We'll talk some about some ideas for each of these stages. But I just like to share that a lot of times you want to go from, I ended this job or going to this job, or I ended school and now I'm going to go into, this is my next move. And really, that in between can feel so uncomfortable and scary. And if we can lean into it and give ourselves the space to kind of get into the murkiness of it, we can come out the other side feeling so much more confident in the direction we want to go into. And in terms of knowing about ourselves and knowing about our options. And then when we have that new beginning, we can have some really great tools in our tool belt to start moving forward strategically. So that's kind of my main point I want to highlight with this transition model, is that we're going to lean into the in-between a little bit in our conversation today. I'm really just going to pose a lot of reflective questions to get you thinking. So again, feel free to write some notes down as we go. If you want to write down any of the questions that we're talking about today, you're welcome to. This session will also be recorded, so you're welcome to kind of come back and access it later. But I do hope that a lot of our questions that we'll go through today will kind of help you move through that murky in between and feel confident about your new beginning. And if you're ever interested, you're welcome to check out this book too. There's some more great reflection questions in there also. So let's jump into a decision-making cycle. So I'm going to kind of briefly talk through what this is and how to use it. So this decision-making process is a research and evidence-based career decision-making cycle that comes out of Florida State University. They call it the Kasabi cycle. You don't have to remember that. But essentially, it is a research-based decision-making process that allows individuals to make well-informed, confident choices. So let's talk through what this looks like. So the first step is at the top of this circle or this cycle, where something is telling us that we need to make a decision. So again, we talked about, you're at the end of a transition or end of a phase in your life. There are messages coming at you, or maybe coming within you, that are letting you know that it's time for a change. Okay. The next part of that phase is knowing ourselves and knowing what we need. And specifically, when it comes to career decision-making, there's 4 areas that are really important for us to think about, and we'll talk more about them in just a minute. But we have to know a little bit about ourselves, right? And what we need from work. Then the next piece is, once we know a little bit about ourselves, we can start to learn more about options that are out there. So some of you talked about like talking to people who have made decisions, who have made changes like this before, kind of learning more about what's out there. Those are great strategies at this stage in the game when you're thinking about, how do I kind of expand my options, learn more about maybe things I never heard of before. And then as you start to explore and learn more options, you're also going to be thinking about those things that you know you need and kind of narrowing down options at the same time. It's kind of like this internal checkbox that we have. I'm going to make sure that things align with our checkboxes. Then hopefully you'll narrow it down to maybe your top 3 to 5 types of areas you might be interested, or jobs you might be interested in, or even paths you might be interested in, just to keep it open. And you'll prioritize those based on your values. And we'll talk more about how to do that at the end of our session today. You'll kind of narrow them down. And then it's really hard to move forward without some kind of risk. So I'll talk about different levels of risk. I know someone shared, what if I fail? there's definitely a whole spectrum of what risk can feel like in terms of taking action and moving forward. And then once you do start to take those actions, then you have the opportunity to kind of evaluate, how did this work out for me? Do I feel good about it? Or do I need to kind of maybe redirect in the future? And we kind of go through this cycle. We go through this cycle throughout our lives all the time, whether it's in careers or other types of decision making. And it's even estimated that current millennials are likely to work in 9 different industries. That's kind of the most recent economist forecast. It's probably gone up since I last got that data, but imagine it working in at least 9 industries. So not even jobs, but industries. And that's just a testament to the fact that we change and evolve over time, and our work kind of has to evolve with us, right? And it's normal for our needs to change, but this is a great cycle to go through as you start to notice that things maybe aren't aligning for you anymore, or you're feeling stuck. Okay. I like to kind of use an example of if you're going to buy like rain boots. So here in Houston, we get a lot of rain, we get some floods. But let's say it's raining really hard and there's puddles everywhere. And so it's letting me know that I need to buy some rain boots. So what I'm going to start with is knowing what I need out of these boots. Maybe it's material, maybe it's a price point, maybe it's like sustainability factor. I'm going to think about, of course, my size, availability. I'm going to kind of think about what those needs are that I have. Then I'm going to look and see what's out there, what's on Amazon, what's in the store, what are at different places. And based on my needs, I'm going to be kind of evaluating, how does this line up with what I know I need about these rain boots? Then I'm going to prioritize them. So based off what's most important to me, maybe it is, again, the size or availability or the material or the color. I'm going to start to narrow down maybe like my top 3 picks, and then I'm going to take action, right? I might order them, I might go in a store and try them on, but I'm going to do something to kind of test it out and see how it fits and how it goes. And then based off that experience, I'm going to evaluate, yeah, these feel like great rain boots. I'm ready for my next rainstorm, or maybe I need to go back and find another pair. Okay. And I don't mean to like trivialize jobs either, because I know that jobs are much bigger decisions and career paths are much bigger decisions than a rain boot. But I just like to kind of illustrate that you may be going through this process on a regular basis, and it's a great process that you can use when thinking about moving forward for your career too. All right. So let's start with, let's see. I'm going to kind of read a note in the chat. So I'm a tail end millennial, and I've definitely had a few different kinds of careers already. It's been hard to find something that really works. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And it may be that, I think that's really normal. And it may be that, what worked at one point in your, in your life doesn't work anymore. And also I find that sometimes people who have a lot of different varied interests kind of need to change jobs and go through these cycles multiple times, just because they have so many interests and needs that they need to get met. And it may be hard to find one job that kind of meets all those needs. So that's actually thank you for sharing. That's a great segue into kind of the first thing to think about with ourselves. So again, step 1, knowing ourselves. Well, I should say step 2. Step 1 is knowing you got to make a decision, but step 2 is knowing yourself. So one of the things to know about yourself in terms of making a strong career decision is your interests. So again, these are some great questions to kind of think about on your own, write down, or maybe come back to this recording and reflect on. But what do you like to do for fun? What are the things you find yourself just in flow, where you just lose track of time and are just, you could spend all day doing something and not even realize the sun's setting? If you could do anything in the world without any like obstacle, what would you, wake up tomorrow and start doing? And again, I know there are obstacles, and I know that there are, we don't always have time for fun, but I really encourage you to think about like, what are the things that you just like truly enjoy? And another question I would like you to think about is, what are your favorite books or movies? And I want to talk about the why here. So a lot of times the way that we engage with content or engage with like forms of entertainment, like a book, a movie, or a show, it says a lot about our other interests. So a lot of times I'll talk to people and I'll say, what do you like to do for fun? And they'll say, oh, well, I'm on YouTube or social media, or I'm on, I like to watch TV. It's like, great, tell me about what you like to watch. And that can give us a lot of insight. So for example, if you really like stories that are around like mystery, or I think like Law and Order, SVU, or things like that, you really like maybe like Forensic Files or any kind of crime shows, you might really enjoy problem solving and the thought process of what happens next and cause and effect, and really kind of thinking through that, like who done it. And so if that's a kind of natural interest that you have, you might enjoy work that allows you to do a lot of problem solving and be curious and understand cause and effect. The same thing is true of like sitcoms. So if you really enjoy sitcoms or romantic comedies or things that are more about like interactions and relationships, you may also enjoy more people-focused type of work that allows you to focus on building relationships in your job. I'll give one more example here. Let's say you like, I can give a couple more actually. So let's say you like shows like Home Improvement, or, and I say Home Improvement, like Home Improvement related shows, not the actual show Home Improvement. They might like that too, but shows that are around like a flip or seeing new houses, or shows related to like baking contests. There may be something about the creativity of those jobs that you really like. So you might enjoy work that allows you to have some sense of creativity in it. And then let's also say you like something like Survivor, or kind of like reality show competitions or things like that. Maybe you like competitive kind of work, or maybe you like work that's really hands-on. So kind of pay attention to what's the content you like to engage in. What is it about it that kind of gets your brain really fired up or gets you really interested and kind of tuned in? So even if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of time for hobbies, think about maybe even just some, again, like books or movies or shows that you like to tap into, because that can, or that you like to engage with, because that can also tap into some of your interests. So that's one domain of things we need to start thinking about for ourselves. What do we like? And it's really important that we do work that we like, because if we don't, yeah, we can do work that we don't like, but oh my gosh, the motivation is so much harder. And when we're doing work that we don't enjoy, guess what? It's going to bleed into other areas of our life too. And so it can have a really big impact on our happiness and just kind of overall life satisfaction. So another component to think about are skills. So if we have a job that we like, but it doesn't come as naturally to us, sure, we can do it, but we're going to get frustrated, and we're going to have to put in a lot more energy than maybe someone else who's doing the same job. And that can feel frustrating sometimes. And a lot of times the things that we like are also the things we're naturally good at, just for the sake of the fact that if we like it, we're more likely to put more time into it and develop a skill out of it. But still think about, what are those things that are skills for you? So are there things that just come naturally to you, or that people come to you for advice for? So for example, I have a neighbor who is an engineer and is very handy. And so anytime I need some help with something that is like handyman kind of work, that's the person I go to. And he has a great skill at that he uses at his job. Think about, what are the things that people come to you for? Is it something like that? Is it a technical skill? Is it, problem solving, relationship advice? What are those things that people come to you for, or kind of perceive you as an expert in? And what are areas that maybe you just want to improve? So maybe it's a skill that you haven't gotten to really check out or test out, but it's something that seems interesting to you and you want to lean into. So that's something to think about too. We don't always get a chance to try every little thing. So think about if there's certain skill sets you've been wanting to try out or build too. Okay. So the third part of this equation, so we talked about interests and strengths. The third part of this is our personality and how it fits into our work environment. So some people might be like this dad here, who might prefer working from home because of the flexibility. Some people might prefer going into an office. Some people might prefer working out in the field, or working with people or numbers. There's different ways that people like to contribute to a team. So think about, for you, are you someone who likes to really collaborate and brainstorm with others? Or are you someone who likes to work independently and then kind of say, hey, your team, this is what I came up with? Think about that, those kinds of dynamics that work best for you. You can even think about your structure. So do you prefer to have a job that's more project-based, where you can kind of work on things as you have time throughout the day? Maybe you can work on in the middle of the night if you need to. Or do you really need structure for like an 8 to 5 or 7 to 4, whatever that looks like for you? So think about, how do you need to structure the work that you do based off what else is going in your life and just your own personality too. So again, I think a lot of times people think, oh, I can do any job, or I'll try whatever. I hear this a lot from the college students that I've worked with is I'll take any job, I'll try whatever. But really, by knowing your preferences, it's going to make your life so much easier to be in an environment that is setting you up for success. So can we work in environments that may not be our favorite? Sure, but we're going to experience tension, right? So if you're someone who really likes to work independently and you're surrounded by people all day, that's going to feel really, really frustrating and draining for you. And even if you like the job, the environment is still going to zap your energy. So try to think about what you need from your environment based off your own personality and preferences. And then the fourth and I would say most important piece of knowing yourself is knowing what's important to you and what your values are. We don't often go around talking about our values, and so we may not have like language for it. And so I've got some prompt questions here to kind of get you thinking about what values might be present for you. So, and if you know your values, great. Some values could be things like having an impact on the community, helping others, prestige, autonomy. Those are just a few values that you might have. But if you think about some of these questions, I hope it can bring up some other ideas of things that are important to you too. So if you think about jobs that you've considered, what is it about that job that sounds appealing to you? That might give you some insight as to what's kind of feeling attractive about it to you. I also like for people to think about who you admire. So even if we don't know what our own values are, a lot of times the things we admire about other people reflect back our own values. So think about the people in your life that you admire and try to think outside like your immediate family. So who's maybe like a distant relative or even like a celebrity, or even if it's like a fictional person, what is it about them that you admire? What are the qualities that they have that are so important to you? And even think about what job do they have? How are they showing their values? And maybe there's something about their jobs that might be of interest to you too. I think with jobs too, a lot of times we only know what we've been exposed to. Like there's so many jobs out there and we don't know what we don't know. So again, thinking about people in our life and the work that they do can also kind of help to expand our options also. A question I like to think about that may seem kind of silly is, what's your favorite character in a story? So if you think about even, when you were younger, is there a story or a movie or some kind of, I'm going to keep saying story. Is there some kind of story where there's a character that you really like? So I'll give a couple examples. So I worked with someone once who their favorite character was Batman. And I asked them, what is it about Batman that makes them your favorite? And they were able to say, Batman really is looking out for other people. He protects, he is able to problem solve and kind of go out there and fight for what's important and keep people safe. And this same person has a career where they are doing a lot of problem solving and a lot of trying to protect people and keep them safe. And it's a great career fit for them because, whether they know it or not, the fact that they love Batman, there's something about that aligns with their values of protecting other people, right? And problem solving. So think about for you, what's your favorite character in a story? And what is it about them that makes them your favorite? There might be something to your own career story that would be important to embed based on what that person does too. The next question is a really big question. So I definitely want to give you space and time to think about it kind of beyond our session tonight. But what do you want your legacy to be? There's a question in the transitions book I mentioned earlier, and it asks, what would you want to have written on your tombstone? Assuming you wanted a tombstone, but God, what a huge question. So think about, what are those lasting pieces? What are the things, if you think about what do you want on your tombstone, what do you want your legacy to be? It really forces you to think, if you're in the future and looking back, what are those things you want to be doing now that you feel like are going to align with what's most important to you? So again, another question to really get you thinking about values. And then, what are your deal breakers? And so I think of deal breakers as maybe the more practical side of values based off with what you need in your life right now. So deal breakers could be um, a certain salary. It could be travel. It could be a job that has certain education requirements, or maybe doesn't have certain education requirements. It could be like maybe you are really needing something that's not so intense for the stage of your life. Maybe you're wanting something that feels like a little bit slower pace. So think about what are those things that if I were to encounter a job like this, I know it's not for me. Okay, because that also can say a little bit about our values, but also our priorities too. All right. So I've given you a lot of things to think about and reflect on in terms of just knowing yourself. So again, those 4 areas that we want to think about are, what do we like? What are we good at? What works best for our personality and the environment? How it's going to set us up for success? And what are our values? And, you know, someone mentioned this in the chat. I think a couple of you actually kind of alluded to values and doing like purposeful work. We can do work that maybe doesn't align with our purpose, but gosh, it's going to impact how meaningful the rest of our life feels. It really is. And what some people do, is they connect with maybe, even if they don't love their job, and like, so let's say you're in a job that you're feeling stuck. Sometimes connecting with the why, like, why does this job even exist? That can help us kind of reignite our values. And so let me give an example. If someone is a custodian, they may not enjoy the actual cleaning aspect of their job. But I know of people who are custodians who say that they love their job because they love creating a safe space for kids. So if you can connect with the why of your job, if you're currently in a job that you feel stuck in, or even the why of the organization you're a part of in terms of how is it having an impact that maybe that you can connect with, that can at least help you get through this stage until you find a job that maybe aligns a little bit more closely. But definitely the importance of values is really going to help us feel like we're doing meaningful work and purposeful, and definitely can change our quality of life. So after we think about these 4 areas and kind of learn a little bit about ourselves, then the next step is going out and learning about options and kind of assessing and evaluating those options as we go based off of what our needs are. And so someone mentioned, you know, feel afraid of what if I fall? I'm sorry, not if I fall, what if I fail? Which can sometimes feel like a fall. But what if I fail? So there are, I like to think of different tiers to risk taking and trying something out that are, again, different levels of risk and investment. So I'm going to start with least risk to most risk. So least, go online, and I'll share some resources that you can use to learn more about career options. So go online, learn a bit about some careers that are out there, watch videos. There's so many things on YouTube about day in the life of, you know, blank career, but learn about options online just to see what's out there. That can be a really great first step for a lot of people. The next step might be connecting with people who are in some of these areas that you're thinking about. We call this an informational interview. An informational interview is just talking to someone who's in a job or career or even in an industry that you're thinking about and you want to know more about firsthand. So you can hear, like, how did you get into it? What's the day-to-day like? What tips do you have for me? What do you like or what do you not like? Getting that perspective from someone who's doing the work you're thinking about can be really, really helpful, and also a great way to build connections that might help you out in the future too. And then there's also varying levels of hands-on experience. So shadowing someone that you talk to kind of get an idea of what is it really like on a day-to-day basis. It could be volunteering for an organization you're interested in, or volunteering to do similar work that you might be interested in. It could even be maybe you want to take a class to learn more about, like, what is the knowledge that's needed, and that might give you a sense of what the work is like. And some people might just gain work experience. They might just start off with a part-time job as a way to kind of ease in and learn more about it if it feels like the right fit for them. Or again, a bigger investment is going to be to gain full-time work in that new path. But I find that folks are a lot more confident in doing that when they've done some of these other steps to kind of lead to it. And that can feel a little bit more comfortable. Okay, so definitely different levels of risk. And I do find, again, that going through the process of learning about yourself and then learning more about options in this kind of graduated way can help with confidence a lot. All right. So let's say you've gone through this process of learning about yourself, you learned about options, you started to narrow things down. Now it's time to really prioritize. So some things to think about is as you are thinking about these options, how is it checking your boxes? So how's it aligning with your needs? And I've got some additional reflection questions here for you to think about too. So what are the costs and benefits of this job? Does it have higher pay, but means I might have a more hectic work schedule, or I might be more stressed out and carry that home? Is this job maybe more creative, but maybe I have concerns about the income? So think about what are the costs and benefits to the job, because every job is going to have some kind of cost and benefit to ourselves and to others. So think about how does it impact you, how does it impact your family, your community, you know, the folks around you that are in part of your life. And as you start to try out these choices through some of those gradual ways, so as you start to try out a choice based off of, you know, maybe taking a class or talking to somebody or shadowing or getting a part-time work, start to think about how am I feeling? So what emotions are coming up for me? Am I finding myself getting excited or more nervous, or am I feeling really at peace? Is it all the above? But start to notice how am I feeling about it, and what are those feelings telling me about whether or not this is the right direction for me? And then the next piece of that is how confident do you feel in it? So I love to ask people to think about, you know, a scale of 0 to 10, how confident do you feel in this choice? And depending on that number, think about what do you need to get like 1 point higher. So if you're at like a 5, you're right in the middle. What do you need to get to a 6? And a lot of times it's additional information. And so again, that can go back to, okay, what's that additional information you need? Maybe you do need to just try it, or maybe you need to talk to somebody. Maybe you need to go online and make sure you have all the data and facts in terms of how fast this industry is growing, or what the salary rates are across the country. You know, what is that information you need to just feel like a slightly bit more sure about it? Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with a family member to make sure it's going to fit in with your life, with the rest of your life. These are some kind of reflection questions you can also be thinking about as you go through this process. And with that too, I'm going to share some resources that you can use to kind of learn about yourself and learn about options, and hopefully evaluate some things too. So I'm going to come back to this first bullet point in just a minute. So we have some awesome resources on our website. But I want to share a couple others of these. And again, feel free to, you can take a screenshot of this, or feel free to come back to this recording in the future. But 2 really great online tools for learning about careers are the Occupational Outlook Handbook. This is a website that is created from the Department of Labor that's got tons of information about careers. They've got videos about what these people do. There's projected job growth. There's how to become this occupation. And if that occupation sounds cool, there's even a whole nother list of similar occupations you might want to consider too. So really great tool. And if you put this in your search engine, Occupational Outlook Handbook, it'll come up. For the next one, same thing. If you type this in your search bar, this will come up too. But the ONET Interest Profiler is actually part of the website ONET Online. And ONET Online is also another great resource to learn about careers. And their interest profiler is a free career interest quiz that they have that you can take. It only takes about 10 minutes. It's free, and will give you some ideas for careers that might be a good fit for you based off of your top career interests. So great places to start. If you're wanting to go a little bit deeper in learning about yourself, we offer a couple of assessments here at Eden's Counseling Group. So one is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, and that's a great way to learn about your preferences and your personality and think about how that could fit into, workplaces that might set you up for success. We also offer a strong interest inventory. That is a very detailed report of how your interests compare with people in 150 occupations, and it'll say, based on your responses, you responded really similarly to people in these occupations. Let's look at what it is about what they do that you might also enjoy. So it can come up with some really great ideas for options there too. And also kind of help us narrow down our interests also. Other great resources and tools are using LinkedIn. That's a great way to find people and kind of learn who's doing the work that you're doing if you want to connect for an informational interview. A really cool thing about LinkedIn too is if you find someone who's working in a role or at a company that you think might be interesting, you can actually look on their profile and see like what are all the jobs that they had to get to this point. So you can actually see kind of a visual of their career path to get an idea of some experiences that you might want to check out or consider having too. LinkedIn also has LinkedIn Learning. So if you are thinking about taking a course to kind of level up, or if there's a certain certification or skill set you're wanting to grow in, there's some options on LinkedIn for that too. And just some other things that maybe aren't necessarily resources, but just recommendations are to think about what might be some barriers to your goal and the support needed. So if you have a goal that you identify and you recognize it's going to impact your life in terms of your income or your schedule, or maybe you do need to take a class or whatever it might be, think about what those barriers are and what support you need. Okay. I like to be realistic and kind of plan for potential obstacles, that way you can kind of have some support in place in case you need to get around them. And then another thing I like to share is when you're in the job search or kind of exploring new careers, try to create some routine out of it. I know we're all busy, but having some structure will help this not feel like you're just in this one big scary dark hole that never ends, because it can definitely feel that way. So having some routine in terms of maybe you decide you want to spend 1 hour looking at what people do in different careers, or 1 hour learning about careers through the Occupational Handbook. Or maybe you just want to not even have a time limit. Maybe you just want to include some kind of schedule around, at this time, I'm going to complete the ONET interest profiler, or at this time, I'm going to make an appointment with a career counselor or therapist at Edens. But have some kind of structure in place so that way it doesn't feel like it's just this swirly dark hole. And every time you take a step towards your career, acknowledge it as a little win and reward yourself. So I hope even after this session, you'll do something to feel like a reward for yourself, whether it is like going for a walk or having an ice cream or whatever it is, watching your favorite show, whatever feels like a reward for you. Build that into each step of the way to keep yourself motivated and encouraged as you go through. So again, let's say you go home and not go home, but maybe after this session, you complete the ONET interest profiler. Do something to reward yourself afterwards. Again, it's really going to help as you keep moving forward. I do want to show you this ebook that we have. All right, is everyone able to see my screen still? Marcus, do you mind confirming? Can you see the website?
No, Lauren, it's still stuck on your slides.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Thanks for letting me know. Sometimes PowerPoint does that. So let me reshare. All right. So this is on our website. So if you go to our website, which is edenscounseling.com, and go to resources, and within our wellness library, if you search for career, this and other resources will come up. We have a whole article about job search and career resources. So especially once you're ready to start moving forward in your job search process, we've got some great stuff in here. So we've got information about the job market. We've got some job search strategies. We've got resume samples, cover letter examples. We've got some resources for preparing for interviews. So a lot of great stuff. And then on this top right-hand side too, let's scroll up a little bit more. We've got an ebook around 7 steps to making positive career changes. You can click on this and download it, and it's got tons of great information, as well as it's kind of like a workbook. So you may see some of the same questions that you saw this evening, but it's got a lot of reflective questions where you can think about, what are my values? What are my skills? What are my interests? What do I know about jobs that are out there? And you can kind of take inventory as you go. So I really recommend checking that out. There's also some great questions in there just to think about, how are you feeling about your job search and what do you need just to feel more confident in general. So anyway, I really encourage you to check that out. And again, this is completely free and on our website. I'll share this in the chat at the end of our session tonight, but also know that you can just go to our website, Edens Counseling, and then go to resources, and then in the wellness library, this should be among some of the career resources that are there. All right. So let me go back to our slides real quick, and I'm just going to wrap up one more thing. All right. All right, can you see the slides again?
Yep, looks good.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so great resources and recommendations here. So for your next steps, think about what are even 3 learning opportunities you could take over the next week to learn about yourself or about options. Again, it could be as small as going online and learning about what's out there, but think about maybe what are 3 things that feel doable. And if 3 feels like too much, what's 1? And then the next step might also be meeting with, excuse me or another career counselor to go over, this whole process with you and be here to support you. So we are here to support you from career exploration to reviewing your resume. We can review your LinkedIn, talk about how you want to network, help you prepare for interviews, and even help you with evaluating and negotiating offers. So just know that you've got support through our team along the way. And if you want to get connected with our office, these are a couple ways to do it. You can call, text, or email for a free consultation just to learn more about our office and services. And if you're ready to just dive in and book an appointment, I've got our link here to book an appointment as well. So lots of ways to get connected with our office and get some support. And with that, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. In the chat, you'll see a link to share feedback. Please share that feedback. We really, really appreciate it and want to know how this was for you. And if you've got any, recommendations for us to kind of support you more in the future. But with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and just want to kind of leave this open for any questions that you may all have. Feel free to add any questions to the chat if anything comes up. If you feel like you're good and you got what you needed, you don't have to stay. You're welcome to go. But thank you so much for joining tonight. I hope you got some helpful information, and definitely feel free to add any questions to the chat. Someone said, what are your thoughts on trial and error method? I think trial and error can be great as long as it's within your scope of comfort with risk, right? So everyone's idea of a trial and error is going to depend. So again, thinking about that kind of continuum of risk, is that you're going to try something by shadowing it, by volunteering, by getting a part-time job, or you're going to jump into a full-time job. I do definitely think that employers can tell when you're not confident, whether or not you know that that's the route you want to go. So do keep in mind that if you are unsure if you're going to like something, an employer can kind of get a sense of that too, and they might feel hesitant if they can sense you might be hesitant. So I think trial and error kind of depends on your own level of comfort with risk, and also how confident you feel in that trial. But great question. And everyone's personality is different too in terms of being ready to jump in and try something versus wanting to feel more cautious. We all have different kind of approaches to that too. Oh, someone said they can see a direction. That is amazing. I wish you all the best. That's awesome. Someone shared, do you have a resource for salary estimates? I do. So those 2 resources that I shared with you, the Occupational Outlook Handbook and Own It, are both great tools to learn about salary expectations. On the Occupational Outlook Handbook, you can even look at kind of state and local as well as nationwide averages for salary. Another great tool is salary.com. And on salary.com, you can even, you can look by location and job title. And you can also even kind of narrow down by years of experience, how many people you're supervising, level of education, and it'll give you a nice benchmark to kind of see where you could expect your range to be in within a wider range of people with a wider range of experiences. So salary.com is another great tool. Someone asked, is the recording available? Absolutely, it's going to be available on our website. So definitely check that out. And also if you follow us on YouTube, it'll also be on our YouTube in the future. Let's see, you all are so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. What is your message for people trying to make a change in career in their 40s other than it's never too late? Oh, I won't say it's never too late, just to not be cliche. But I know a lot of people who I'm working with someone right now who's making a career change in their 40s. It can absolutely be done. I've worked with people who've made career changes in their 60s. It can be done. So I think it goes back to identifying those transferable skills. So think about really what are the things that come naturally to me? What are the experiences I've had from my past careers that I want to bring with me into the future? And then working with a career counselor to kind of think about how do you want to strategically promote and talk about all of those transferable skills in an interview and in your resume. So I won't say it's never too late, but I'm definitely working with folks now that are in that age group that are making career changes. So it's absolutely possible. Great question though. All right. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. Someone said, thank you for talking about sharing the questions regarding stories and characters. You're absolutely welcome. I hope some of it resonates for you. Yep. If you're in your 30s, there might be more changes to come. Awesome. Thank you all for the feedback. I know we've got a few more minutes. So again, if you feel like you've gotten what you needed, you're welcome to head out. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but thank you so much for participating and engaging. I really hope you got something useful and helpful from our session today. I'll stick around just a few more minutes if there's any other questions. You're welcome to add them to the chat. Someone said, does what students say about me count as what I'm good at? Could you share just a little bit more? Are you working with students currently? Okay. It could be. I mean, I think if you're in a teaching role, you could definitely think about what is it about the content that you're sharing with them that I would say yes. So if there's things that people, I would say in general, if the people that you are serving or working with are giving you feedback, that could definitely be a sign of something that you're good at. And I might even not just ask the people that you serve and what they say about you, but what do your colleagues think you're good at too. But definitely the people you serve are probably one of the best judgments of whether or not you've got some skills at the thing that you're working on with them. That could definitely count. I hope I answered your question. Okay. So another question, what additional advice would you give to someone who has a lot of interest and can imagine a lot of very different niche careers and have a lot of different work experiences? That is where I think that's pretty normal to change jobs often. Again, like for people who have a lot of interest, I hear that a lot. It's very normal because you're trying to get so many interests filled. One of the best ways to really narrow down is to think about your values. So anytime we're feeling like there's a lot of options on there and feeling maybe even overwhelmed by all the interests and options, checking into your values is going to be the way to kind of narrow it down the best, right? Because if you might be doing work that you like, but if it's not feeling meaningful or fulfilling to you, it may not ultimately check your boxes or feel as interesting to you otherwise. So tap into values as a way to kind of narrow it down. Great question. I think you're in really good company too. All right, everyone, we're about at 8 o'clock. So I'm gonna let you all go. I hope you have a great evening and I hope you do something to reward yourself for taking this time for yourself. I hope you have a good evening and thanks again for all the questions and all your participation. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, everyone.